to the conservatives' reactions as well. But first here, look, this is very easy to understand. If you don't get it, let me easily explain this. Sex and gender identity are different. You can have the anatomy that can give birth to a child and identify as a man. That's all you have to understand. It really isn't that complicated. So that's the extent of this. And Josh Hawley is not an idiot. He understands this, but he has to use this as a wedge issue, as a culture war issue, even though it's simply an issue of human decency and human rights. But because he's a piece of garbage, he has to use issues like this that clearly, as I'm going to show you in a second here, yes, increase violence towards the trans community when you deny their existence. And he has to use this as an issue to get voters to come out because he has nothing real to actually offer them. And that gets to part of the Fox News commentary in a second here. But quickly on this point about the violence. So this from Fox. Bridges' concerns reflect the fact that lawmakers' political attacks on trans people, including denying their existence and using legislation to limit their freedom of movement, access to activities, and availability of health care, have coincided with an increase in physical violence. According to a 2021 Time report, anti-trans violence has surged in the wake of an increase in legislation targeting trans people. A 2021 UCLA report also found that trans people, particularly Black and brown trans people, were significantly more likely to be victims of violent crime than cis people. So there's the data right there. You can try and deny it, but it's obvious. And it's obvious on its face. The more you deny the existence of people, the more you have these pockets of this hate developing, the more the likelihood of that hate being turned into physical violence. It's that easy. So also worth noting here, in terms of the way this interaction went down, understand that, look, when you're talking to someone in a position of power like Josh Hawley, a lawmaker in a public forum where this is being broadcast, the approach that Kara Bridges here took is the right approach to take. But if you're talking to someone who's like, I don't know, your uncle who actually doesn't know anything and wants to learn and is open to it, then don't treat them like they're stupid. So there's a way to talk about these issues depending on who the audience is. So, some people may be turned off by this because of the way that she's approaching Hawley here, kind of talking down to him. But that's what you have to do when you know these people are full of shit. So again, a public forum, Josh Hawley's a piece of garbage. She's exposing his trash. That's a different situation than you talking one-on-one with somebody in your personal life and trying to educate them on these issues. So I'm saying this because, look, you can easily turn people off by treating them like idiots in your everyday life. But again, when it's a public forum and you have someone who should know better and does know better, there's a different way to approach that than the way you would in your personal life. But let me get to now the reaction here from Jessica Tarlov. So this again is one of the few Fox News liberals. This is on Fox's The Five, and here is her fantastic response to Josh Hawley.
But about, the impact of these wokester moments. First of all, the average person is not watching these hearings. And the average person thinks of Josh Hawley and they remember him fist in the air walking by the people who became the Capitol Hill rioters on January 6th. Josh Hawley, Ron DeSantis, Tom Cotton, they're all fake. They're populist fakes. They all go to Ivy League schools. They're fancier than I am, for everyone who likes to make fun of me for my ivory tower background. And I want to read something from the Washington Post.
They're fancier than you are?
They're fancier than I am.
Fancier?
Fancy. Okay, Monica.
How fancy?
Let me read this.
I like that
Monica Hassan, the Washington Post. If you know you're talking about a pregnant woman, by all means, call her that. If you know you're talking about someone who is pregnant and not a woman, then address them how they want to be addressed. You're gaining just 7 extra syllables, and I promise you, you're losing nothing. And there is something to treating people with dignity. I don't care if you think that trans people are ridiculous, that it's made up, whatever it is. If there's a trans man who is living his life like this, if he identifies that way, if he works at a job, he has a family, and he wants to go and have children, the greatest gift that he can, and he has not had gender reassignment surgery, then call him how he lives.
You're drifting into the land.
No, I'm not.
But that is not what we just saw with Hawley.
It is what we...
Okay, so I will get to more clips involving conservatives coming to Josh Hawley's defense, and I will annihilate their bullshit as well. But here, Jessica Tarlov, fantastic job. And just quickly on the last part of that clip, that other pundit there denying that's what the conversation was about with Josh Hawley, that was literally the conversation. That's exactly what it was about. It was about people who identify as male being able to birth children. That was the conversation. How do you deny that's the conversation? So look, her breakdown here is exactly right, and the quote from Washington Post also correct. You don't have to use birthing person. Like this is a thing invented by conservatives to try and make it sound like that the left is so intolerant. No, if you're a woman who is pregnant, guess what? You can be called a woman who is pregnant. No one's forcing you to call yourself a birthing person. It's just in the case of people who are not women, who are pregnant. That's what this conversation is about. And to deny that exists or to deny their reality or who they are is just to be inhumane. Again, this is simply about human decency. That's all it is. All you have to do is understand, hey, this person identifies as these pronouns and that's their name. Okay, that's their name. If someone tells you their name is Jess and you call them Joe, that's just being mean. Like, why would you do that? So why would you deny someone's existence when they tell you how they identify and what their name is? It's the exact same thing. This is so like the way the right has turned this into a issue to get voters like galvanized is so incredibly insane. And again, it goes to the point that these are, as Jessica points out, fake populists. They don't have anything real to actually offer. So they have to latch on to these issues and generate them, make them into culture war issues when they're just issues of human decency and human rights. And her other points there were also fantastic. I mean, attaching Josh Hawley to the Capitol rioters is exactly correct. He was all involved in that. And how, ultimately this is just about treating people with respect. And Jesse Waters there in the middle of that, like, latching onto the word fancy. And like, oh, fancy, I like that word. Like, what? These people are so empty. And it goes like, to me, it comes out as a defense mechanism. Because he knows he has nothing to actually say, he has no way to actually refute what she is saying, he latches on to random words and tries to make fun of her over using the word fancy. Very, very bizarre. But now let's get to the conservative side. And I'm going to get to some education here as well, not to scare you away, but hopefully you can learn something in the process as conservatives continue to pretend that the science is on their side. Oh, we're about science, not when it comes to any other issue, not when it comes to, climate change, nothing else. But when it comes to this issue, we're all about the science, even though the science, again, is not on their side. But Stephen Crowder, one of the defenders here of Josh Hawley, coming out to say men cannot get pregnant, saying that is not violence, it's fact. Again, I already pointed out earlier how, according to a 2021 Time report, anti-trans violence has surged in the wake of an increase in legislation targeting trans people and the increase in anti-trans rhetoric. But let's get to Ben Shapiro. So Ben Shapiro commented on this, again, coming out in defense of Josh Hawley. And here is the garbage that he was spewing.
The generalized point the left tries to make is that if you say that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, a bunch of people who believe they are members of the opposite sex will be so despondent about the fact that biological reality exists and that you are saying it. Not even that it exists, that you're saying it. That they're going to go commit suicide. There's only one problem with this line of argument. It's complete nonsense. There's no statistical evidence to suggest that the wildly disparate suicidal ideation rate among LGBT people suddenly corrects itself to meet the cis norm, meaning people who know what sex they are and it is their biological sex, the heterosexual norm. That the suicide rates, the suicidal ideation rates, do not suddenly become equal if you live in an area that is highly tolerant of LGBT. They're still wildly disproportionate, which suggests that there are a bunch of other intervening factors, including serious comorbidities with regard to anxiety and depression that attend upon LGBT identity. We're not allowed to talk about any of that. The idea is supposed to be that it's because Josh Hawley is mean that trans kids are now suicidal. That is not true. There's no evidence to that idea. And by the way, even were that true, it would not mean that it is now Josh Hawley's job to lie. Truth matters in a society. If some people are unable to handle truth, and this causes them to be more mentally ill or more suicidal, that is not the fault of the truth. We're going to have to find some different solutions. The solution is not society-wide falsehoods.
All right, so putting aside the fact that Ben Shapiro here is just being an asshole, here is a pro-lifer that clearly does not give a shit about transgender individuals. putting that aside,